everybody, and welcome to episode 73 of the I Rock Knits podcast. My name is Corey Eichelberger, also known as I Rock Knits on the internet, because I Rock is my first name, Corey spelled backwards, and I knit in a rocker recliner. I am joined today by my trusty companion lying on the floor here, the newly 11-year-old chocolate labradoodle weighing in at 74 pounds this week, Cody, who just had a birthday yesterday. So happy birthday to Cody. For all you dog lovers out there, you know that 11 is getting a little over the hump. So he has met his mama on his way to aging, 60 and 11. So we are going into the elder part of our years, both hurting in the hind end a little bit and having trouble getting up and down out of a seated position. Now, he had a great day yesterday. I took him to the dog park and he was giddy. He had a little bath and he got a little treat. So that was kind of fun for us. I called Kylie and said, hey, it's Cody's birthday. And so everybody tried to wish him a bit of a happy birthday yesterday. I don't know that they ever realize that you're giving them extra treats, and why? I just thought I would mention. What am I wearing today? Today I have on my Friendship Road sweater. This is my go-to t-shirt, sweatshirt, soft. It's knit out of that lovely cotton yarn. I just can't get enough of it. It's just so easy to throw on and wear everywhere. So I threw it on. We had spent some time outdoors today, so I'm a little windblown and feeling a little flushed from some time outside yesterday. I think today many of you are going to learn a little more about me than maybe you ever wanted to know. I have a couple of revelations. So we'll see how it goes here. I'm going to start today with a bit of a story. Not really the Corey stories for today because I have a separate one at the end. But when I chose to talk about the Pippin Poncho and the I Will Knit With You shawl last time, and I had my birthday to tell about, I forgot to kind of tell the story of the poncho and why I named it the Pippin Poncho. And I just felt like I needed to share that with all of you. And so I wrote it down on this week's podcast notes. And so I'm just going to tell you what that's all about. So my Pippin Poncho is the one that came out with knit circus yarns in this speckled colorway. It's just super fun and cheery, very Corey colors, but you can do it in any color you want. You can even do it in gray. Not going to be upset about that. This is what the romance copy says at the beginning of the pattern, which I always write on all my patterns, kind of a little story to introduce it. In 1997, during my junior year of high school, I was taken to the Pan American Gymnastics Cup in New York City, New York, with a small group of other gymnasts by our high school coach, Carol Nygaard. She had a friend near the city, so we had somewhere to stay, and although the trip was all about gymnastics and seeing the sights, when you grew up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, the chance to get to see a Broadway play seemed unrealistic. But we did get to attend, and we saw Pippin on Broadway. The musical was a huge success, and I danced in a troupe called Magic to Do with 10 guys and 10 girls, where we traveled around the city performing at halftimes, events, and at nursing homes. The theme song of the play has had a special place in my heart all these years, and when I was brainstorming a name for this open work poncho, I thought the 70s and Pippin was the perfect one. So yes, I danced in a dance troupe, which is just so funny to me now that we could convince 10 boys from our high school to dance with 10 girls and do a lot of kind of interpretive dance. We also did like the Charleston and the swing, but we'd have different formations and we would perform at halftime shows. We would go around the city. My partner's name was Jeff Bolke, and he and I were dear friends, and we were two of the shorter people on the dance troupe, and it was run by our drama department, Mr. Jorgensen, Joel Jorgensen, who has since passed away. He kind of headed up this, he had this dream to have this group that would do all of these songs, and we had outfits. So the girls wore black leotards and black dance long silky kind of skirts that went down to our knee with black tights and black shoes, and then the boys wore black like one-piece unitards, and they had to wear a dancer's jockstrap. I mean, the whole thing it was very uncomfortable for them, and they had to be really, conscious of their bodies because they were, their arms were bare. And then we would change, like we would put on a silver vest, or we would put on red and blue ties around our waist for the different songs that we did. So we'd go off and we'd come back on. It was a whole thing. But for me, being able to see Broadway and then having one of the songs from Pippin, which was magic to do, it has great memories for me. Okay, enough reminiscing. You're going to have to tell me if you've ever seen Pippin. Our high school department a couple of years ago here locally did Pippin, and the weekend of the show we had a huge snowstorm, and they had to cancel a performance or two, if I remember, and then I never got to see it, and I would have loved to have gone to see the high school kids. So that is why I named the poncho the Pippin Poncho, because I just have such fond memories of the 70s going to high school. I graduated in 1979. I was a disco queen back in the day. We would go to the discotheque every Sunday night for teen night, and I would dance with Jeff because they would have contests, and we danced together all the time, and so we got quite good, and so we would win free pop and stuff like that. We did a lot of lifts and twirls. It's a memory of a high school time that I don't think will ever happen again for kids, right? I can't imagine that you would get together a group of 20 kids and have them dance together and travel around. I mean, maybe. I just don't see that even in the dance schools here locally. I don't see that they've got that many guys who are dancing, if it's in ballet or tap or whatever. I mean, I took all the dance when I was younger because my mom knew that I loved it, and we had a local lady who taught tap dancing. I was just talking to my brothers about that this weekend when we were reminiscing and setting up a Zoom call for my mom for Mother's Day. And my brother Jeff, who's younger, the youngest, said, I don't know how come I never had to take tap. And I said, well, I think it's because our neighbor had her fourth baby. And so I think you were about the same age or a little bit younger. And so she probably quit teaching. But when Mark and I were, I'm 7 years older. So, and then I have a brother that's 2 years younger than I am. So they're like 5 years apart. So we did a lot of things together because my mom would sign us both up, right? So if we were going to do piano, we both had to do piano. If we were going to do tap dancing, we both had to do tap dancing. And at one point I had to convince my brother when I was in high school and he was a sophomore to dance on the dance troupe because we couldn't find another guy. And he did it for me. But yeah. So anyway, I just thought you should all have that story. Say I'm looking for a graphic designer, a graphic artist is really what I'm looking for. If you are a graphic artist and are interested in doing some work for me, will you get in touch? I need a couple of pictures drawn of my designs, some things that I've drawn. I just need them outlined and sketched for some publicity I'm doing for a thing. And then I also need, I'm going to open a spreadshirt store that will have like my logo, and then it will also have like the different phrases from the podcast that I use. So like keep it colorful, waddle on, no green bananas. So I've developed a couple of logo t-shirts, bags, things like that to put out on this site. But I'm not familiar enough with the software for art people to know if I have the right pixels or vector graphics, right? Like I need some help. So if you know anything about that, or have someone in your family and they want to work with me on a little side work, just let me know, because that is something that I've got in the pike coming down the tube. And then I also want to add that when that happens, when I get this product, I had a suggestion from someone, and so I said yes, I could do that. I could come up with the list of things that I say at the end of the podcast. It would be kind of an inside joke, it'd be funny, do it in really bright colors, right? So the whole thing is just, it's been really fun to take a look at. when I get that all ready to go, I will send it out in my newsletter. So if you don't subscribe to my newsletter on iRockKnits.com, where you just put in your email, the only time I ever send you an email is when I have a new pattern, and I'll give you a coupon code, because I don't have a blog. I don't plan on starting to write a blog. I don't know where I would fit it in. I just don't have to. I like to write, but I just don't have time to sit down in addition to the design stuff. And so, but I would also send you something when I open this Spreadshirt store and the Amazon affiliate thing. I'm just getting that stuff kind of taken. But the first one is going to start in the audiobook section of the podcast, and I have all the books to talk to you about. I don't know why, but I got 4 done in the last couple weeks, and I'm also on number 5 and 6 simultaneously here, so all the audiobooks. The first one I read since last week was called The 10,000 Doors of January. I heard about it on the Toad Hollow podcast. It was their favorite book of the year last year, or one of their favorites. And it's a fantasy. There's a bit of magical realism or surrealism in it, and those are not usually my kind of books. I have a hard time suspending disbelief when I watch anything on TV. My mind always says, well, that could never happen. Now, it's not that I can't go there if I think about it, but it takes a little bit for my brain to engage when stuff is not true. This was just very, very well done, an excellent read. It's by Alex Harrow, and the synopsis is, in early 1900s, a young woman embarks on a fantastical journey of self-discovery after finding a mysterious book in this captivating and lyrical debut. So first novel by this woman, which I think is amazing. In a sprawling mansion filled with peculiar treasures, January Scholar is a curiosity herself. As the ward of the wealthy Mr. Locke, she feels little difference from the artifacts that decorate the halls, carefully maintained, largely ignored, and utterly out of place. Then she finds a strange book. So very well done. I'm not going to spend too much time on any of the books today since I have so many to talk about, but I would have given it a 4 out of 5 for me and a big thumbs up. I really hemmed and hawed about reading it because I just don't do some fantasy well, but there was enough absolute realism that some of this could occur when she goes into some of these other worlds that I just found it just a delightful read. It was 12 hours and 20 minutes, and I got it through the Libby app. So I would highly recommend. And if any of you read it after hearing the Toad Hollow ladies read it or talk about it, then let me know what you thought as well, okay? The second one I read was one that obviously I downloaded on Libby, and then I got a notice that I could take it off hold, and I had all these other books in my queue, and so I was like, oh shoot, I've got to get that one done. And it was only 7 hours and 2 minutes, so I just powered through it because it was going to be due in 2 days. It was called An Invisible Thread: The True Story of an 11-year-old panhandler, a busy sales executive, and an unlikely meeting with destiny. It's by Laura Schroff and Alex Tresniowski. This is just a true story about a white woman who befriends a black boy on the streets of New York City. And I get a little leery about that whole, white savior concept, the whole concept of throwing money at something and it will make it better. But they did develop a really strong friendship over many, many years. And in the end, you could see that there was no harm done. It's a fascinating story. I'll tell you just a little bit. I'll tell you just a little bit. She was a successful ad sales rep in Manhattan. He was a homeless 11-year-old panhandler on the street. He asked for spare change. She kept walking. But then something stopped her in her tracks and she went back. And she continued to go back again and again. They met up nearly every week for years and built an unexpected, life-changing friendship that has today spanned almost 3 decades. Whatever made me notice him on that street corner so many years ago is clearly something that cannot be extinguished, no matter how relentless the forces aligned against us. Some may call it spirit, some may call it heart. It drew me to him as if we were bound by some invisible, unbreakable thread, and whatever it is, it binds us still. Yeah, it was very, very interesting. He grows up in the slums in New York City. His mother is an addict. His family are all users. They come and go in his life. He's raising himself. He has no one to really guide him. He doesn't go to school very often. And she kind of steps in and helps with all of that. So it was very uplifting. I don't know who recommended it to me. I think maybe it was someone from this group. So if you did, let me know, because I don't keep track of that, like who recommends what always. And I probably should give people some credit for recommending a good book. Okay, the next book I read is for book club for May, which will happen tomorrow. I'm recording a day early. It's Sunday afternoon. My husband went to the grocery store and I said, boy, if I could get the recording done today, then I could just edit tomorrow and that would be great because I also have book club. So I sat down quick. I was pretty organized with what I was going to talk about this week. But we are reading a really short book because tomorrow is our last meeting of the year. We do not meet in the summertime, even though it's been on Zoom. And so we always discuss all of our suggestions for the upcoming year. So we will have pages and pages and pages of suggestions tomorrow, and we'll go through and different people will talk about different books and what they think we should read. And then she tries to pick one of each, right? She tries to pick one historical fiction, one nonfiction, one literature based, kind of like that. But this one is our children's book for this year, and it's called Because of Winn-Dixie, and it is by Kate DiCamilla. I had read it years ago, and it is a book about a dog. And so I know I have a lot of dog lovers out there, and it is a 2-hour, 55-minute book on Audible, which also means that if you wanted to sit down and read it, it would just take no time at all. And if you have a child or grandchild in your life, then this might be something that you would want to give them if they've never heard it. Now, I think a lot of elementary schools read this in second, third, and fourth grade. But this young girl finds a dog in the grocery store, and then she names him Winn-Dixie, which is super funny because she doesn't know his name. One summer's day, 10-year-old India Opal Bulani goes down to the local supermarket for some groceries and comes home with a dog. But Winn-Dixie is no ordinary dog. And then it's the whole story of her summer. It goes very quick. Many things happen. They've just moved to this town. She makes some friends. It's delightful. I was really glad I went back and listened to it again. I was thinking, I've read it. I kind of remember what it was about, but I just finished it quickly in an afternoon, and it was excellent. Okay, and then the last couple books that I'm going to talk about very briefly, because I wasn't even going to share. I'm getting flushed already. I read for the first time ever 50 Shades of Grey and 50 Shades Darker. I listened to them on Audible, which is a little face inflaming. I had never listened to them, and someone asked me why I call my classes 50 Shades of Sweaters and 50 Shades of Shawls. And I said, well, it was just a play on the title, but no, I had never read the books. And now I'm wondering what people have been thinking all this time, that I would call my sweater and shawl classes something that I thought was really kitschy. If you have never heard of these novels and don't know, they're fairly romantic pornography. There's some very graphic sexual experiences in it. For this young girl and this gentleman that she meets. He's a multi-billionaire, millionaire, and she meets him doing an interview for the college newspaper, and they fall in love. But he has some sadistic tendencies. He was abused as a child, and so he has spent some of his life with their permission abusing and dominating other women. So he wants to teach her his ways. And she's not all interested, but she wants to be with him. I just found it fascinating, interesting. I mean, I used to listen to romance back in the day, but this is much more graphic, and the sexual experiences are something, many of them are things I'd never heard of. I'm going to kind of just leave it at that. I would be really interested to know if any of you, after finishing the first book, had to go read the second one, because first part of the first book, I'm like, I don't need to read this, right? Like, I don't need to finish this. But then I started caring about the characters, and I kind of want to know, like, is she going to stick with him, and is she going to stay with him, and is he going to be more of a jerk? I was going to use a worse word there, but, or does he come around, or does she go down that path to the dark and ugly? So anyway, I was talking to Amber about it this week, and I said, have you ever read this? And she's like, no, I never read it. And I said, well, I had to go watch the movie. I'm going to be perfectly honest. This was just so far out of my scope of knowledge. Well, and I think you guys know that I love learning and I like understanding about things in the world. And in this situation, it was something that I didn't know and had to learn about. I'm not embarrassed to talk about loving people and being a sexual being. Like, we talk about those things in my family. I was raised by two parents who often said, kids, we need a half an hour. That was not being, they were teasing. It was a teasing thing. They weren't being disgusting. We didn't think it was weird. It was kind of funny. They would be kitschy about it. But my parents have loved and loved hard for many, many years. And I aspire to have the love my father has in his eyes when he looks at my mother, is when they talk about each other. And they have had their differences of opinion. They don't always agree on things, but they are so in love and love each other physically. And they love each other physically in front of us. There's hugging and kissing and ooh-la-lying, right? So for me to be so like dumbstruck by reading a book that I just had no idea about, it was really interesting. So I wasn't even going to talk about them because I thought nobody needs to have me give a review of these books. But Anastasia Steele and Christian Grey will be long in my mind. I think the third book in the trilogy, she's just writing it. It just came out. And the movies, I went and did some discovery because I thought I want to be able to talk about this. The movies made millions and millions of dollars. They're like the 13th highest grossing film. And, I watched it in the privacy of my own home. I cannot imagine watching it in the movie theater. But my guess is groups of women went together. Groups of young women went together. When I first moved to this neighborhood, some of the women in this neighborhood had a lingerie party, and I think that was, kind of a common thing 15 years ago when they were doing those parties where people would get together. I have never been to a lingerie party, but I also had never been, I'm going to just slide right into the next thing, but I had also never been to a drag show. And yesterday, my daughter and her boyfriend took me to my first ever drag show. Kylie had to been invited to go to this drag show, which is in downtown Minneapolis. It's on the rooftop of the Crave restaurant here in Minneapolis, if you're local. And they do themes. So they pick music for an hour of entertainment. And she went with a group of friends, and the teachers at the school that she went with were all kind of going, and there's quite a bit of alcohol and there's food involved and all of that. And she saw that Mamma Mia was going to be the theme in May, and it was Mother's Day weekend. And she said, Mom, you love musical theater, which we do. You have seen all kinds of things in your life, and I don't think this would be a problem for you. And I said it wouldn't. I wouldn't have any problem going. It was so much fun. If you are within a few hours of the Twin City metro area, I highly recommend. Can these ladies dance? Oh my Lord. And they did all the songs, and they kind of did them in an order. So there were slower songs and then faster songs, and there would be like one performer that would come up on the rooftop, and we all stayed seated, and the tables were far apart. We were outside. So they did a lot of walking all the way, the bars kind of in the center. They did a lot of walking all the way down to the end and up the other side, so you couldn't always see the whole time, which was fine because otherwise you were clapping and singing and cheering and you couldn't eat. And so it was sponsored by one of the whiskey companies, and so they were giving out fireballs, which are like cinnamon, hot, reminded me of like those red hot tamales, little shots, just tiny little bit in the bottom of a cup for free. People could try that. I don't usually drink alcohol, but I was not going to not try it. I've also never had one of the fireballs, so I thought, I'm all in here. We had the best time. We had great food. Crave does super good food. It was, I was just in awe. These girls, this was their third show of the day, and they just gave it their all. Like there were high kicks and splits and cha-chas and tangos and the pony, and it was just, for my first time back out in public at an event with other people around, and there is kind of limited, they don't sell more than just this many tickets. The music was loud. I know all the songs. I love Mamma Mia. I love ABBA. It filled my extrovert soul. I posted some pictures in my stories of some of the, we videoed some of the people coming around. It was the best 2 hours I've spent in a long time. It was relaxing, and everyone was cheering and just being themselves. There were tables of gay men and tables of straight women over here, and it was just so much fun. If you would have said to me, the first thing you're going to do coming out of quarantine is go to a drag show, I'd have been like, where am I going to go to a drag show, right? Like, I don't know. And there were 2 bridesmaids parties, so they're having bachelorette parties there, and there were people celebrating. There were people having their birthday celebrations there, and there was several Mother's Day mother people there because they asked, you to come up and say if you were celebrating something big. And so anyway, there you go. Some revelations, some things about me that you never knew. I'm all about people being who they are, right? Like, you do you, you be you. It is not infringing on my freedom at all for you to go and do the things you want to do and be who you want to be. So I hope that there's no one sitting in judgment on the other side of the camera today. Okay, let's do the recipe of the week this week. I have a really good one for you. It's called 20-minute honey garlic cashew chicken with coconut noodles. It's from the Half-Baked Harvest. So if you just go out and put in Half-Baked Harvest 20-minute honey chicken, I think it would come up. But you have chicken breast, soy sauce, sesame oil, and then this ingredient that I did not have, mango or pineapple jam. And I was looking for mango pineapple because that's what I remembered in my head, and I did find mango pineapple online, but it also, you can just use apricot preserves, but it adds this sweetness, so I wouldn't leave it out. And then there's honey, garlic, ginger, red pepper flakes, cashews, which I left out because I don't like nuts in my food. We've talked about that a bit before, but I don't like walnuts in my cookies, and I don't like different kinds of nuts in my brownies or whatever. So I didn't use the cashews. And then it also has rice noodles and coconut milk, and then a mango on top if you choose to. The reason that we chose this recipe is because I've recently gone back to being 100% gluten-free, and I should have been eating that way for the last 5 years since I originally went gluten-free, but it became, a bit of a problem to stay gluten-free when you don't have celiac disease and you can occasionally eat some gluten and it doesn't affect you too badly. What happened with me was I just kept eating more gluten, and it was easier to order the regular noodles or not to make zoodles at home. And Ross would say, can I have my noodles or do we have to have your noodles? And we go to eat, and it's just always kind of a pain to ask for the gluten-free menu. Plus, I really enjoy some gluten once in a while. I want some bread. I want a bun that, has some gluten in it. So I decided in February to do some serious thinking about weight loss. And then March, I kind of started to think about going sugar-free. And then in April, around my birthday, I had some sweets and some cakes and some treats. And so finally I just was like, okay, I'm going all in, sugar-free, gluten-free, 1 month, starting after my birthday, gonna do 30 days. I've done 30 days before of being pure, like all on it. And so we were looking for a recipe. And we had rice noodles in the cabinet, which I really like. I think rice noodles are quite good. This sauce, this sweet and spicy honey soy sauce is delicious. Like, it was one of the best chicken sauce dishes I've had that's kind of in the vein of stir fry. So I also added some vegetables to it. Like, I think we had mushrooms and I think I served maybe pea pods on the side. But I highly recommend this. It only takes a third of a cup of canned coconut milk, and you just put that in at the end, and it kind of helps to make the rest of it creamy. And if you haven't cooked a lot with coconut milk, it doesn't always make things taste like coconut. So if coconut is a no-go for you, anyway, highly recommend. I'll try to remember to put the picture in for everybody, but it was... like, we both were like, this is so good. Highly recommend. I want to just briefly touch on the knitting exchange. I found someone to help me out with the knitting exchange. Thank you, Emily. She responded right away. I had reached out to a couple of people who had offered their help or their services to me in the past, and she got back right away. And Emily's on Instagram, understands the concept of taking stuff from Ravelry and putting it on Instagram so people can see it and don't have to go to Ravelry to look at the knitting exchange. So Emily's going to be helping me with that. We hope to post all the things that are posted on Ravelry over on Instagram in a quicker manner and to get things kind of moving there. I'm still looking for more followers on that knitting exchange Instagram page. So if you go over there and just look at some of the items, could you tag a friend and tell them about it and what it's all about? We've got a couple tips and tricks. The first tip that I have this week is that, did you guys know that Regia sock yarn has a 10-year guarantee? I did not know that. And they've got a, 10-year guarantee. They will replace your sock yarn, possibly not the same color because they don't always have the colors in stock. But if you have an issue with your socks, they'll replace the sock yarn. I couldn't believe it. They have a whole page on it. I heard it from Roxanne Richardson, who has the Rox Knits video blog tutorial space. I don't think she calls herself a podcaster, but she has a Friday podcast and then a Tuesday tip every week. She's super knowledgeable. I've talked about her before, but she just kind of off the cuff made this comment, and I was like, how did I not know that? Then I brought it up to several people in my knitting group, and Matt, of course, who knits 1,000 socks, said, oh yeah, Regia is one of the best, sock yarns, and Amber too. They knit socks exclusively, both of them. Constantly have socks on the go. So if you did not know that, I thought, well, I could bring that little tip to the group. The second tip that I have is that I just heard about these circular needles. They're called Sea Knits, SEEKNITS, and they have 9.5-inch circs, the small ones for socks, sleeves, mittens. But one tip is a 1/2 inch longer than the other. So for anybody who has not been able to use the 9-inch circulars because the circumference is too small and it's fatiguing their hands, having one tip be smaller would cause you to not have to pull those needle tips in so hard. And so you might not have as much of a problem. So the company that's doing this, their new needles, it's by KA, capital K, capital A, of Japan. And they're making them out of maso and timber bamboo. So they're bamboo needles. And they have 2 colorways of needles. So they have a shirotaki colorway, which is kind of the neutral, kind of pale yellow color. And then they have the koshitsu, which is the brown tinted one. And I found them on Etsy. It looks like they had them on Amazon, but not the 9-inch circs. So this C knit is new out of Japan, and they are going to be offering these 9-inch circs. And so if you've tried them in the past and you want to invest in trying again, I think having that one tip be shorter might be a real trick. Someone asked which hand you hold the shorter tip in, and the response that I saw on Facebook was it doesn't matter, that the woman who was using them the most was holding the longer tip in her right hand, but she said that's just because it worked for me, and holding the shorter tip in your right hand would probably work as well. So you might want to give those a look. I would really like 9-inch circs to work for me, but I don't want to knit socks that much anymore. I just have too many pairs, and I just want to knit all the sweaters, so I haven't really gone down that rabbit hole. And then the last thing I want to share is I had to buy inserts for my feet, for my shoes, for my feet. And when Amber was here, she saw the package laying on the counter, and I've had these for probably almost, well, not a year. But when I first went to the orthopedic doctor about my feet, they really recommended that I get an insert. Now, this is kind of an orthotic type insert, and all 3 doctors that I went to, because I kept going to different doctors at different clinics, and then I finally found the guy who would do my foot surgery, they said that they're called super feet, and they come in this green box, and Amber's like, I'm going to take a picture of that, because that would be a good thing to know. And so I pull my kind of inserts out of my shoes and put these in instead, and they're cut to fit. So I buy this size, and I just have to cut a little bit off the toe, not much at all. And it has a fit profile with a higher arch that hits you right in the right spot, apparently, and they're not custom, right? They're not the custom orthotics that can cost so much money. So I thought, I'm just going to share that, because there might be other people out there that are looking for, where do I find something to help my feet? I'm no doctor. I can't give you a prescription or anything for what you should be having, but I thought I would share it, because when Amber was here for my birthday, she saw them laying there. Let's do the shawl of the week. This is on the Spice Market. So many of you are going to know what this is, and you're going to say, oh, I knit that, or oh, I remember that shawl. But it came out in April of 2016, and it's a fingering weight shawl, and it takes about 900 yards. But you usually do it with a skein of, fingering weight yarn and then a set of minis. And that's kind of what it was originally written for, and it was written for Miss Babs. It was a pattern that came out with using their yarn. And so they have several different iterations of colors. I was really drawn to it because it was done in kind of the oranges and the yellows in the original one. But there are like 3,000 projects out there, so there's lots of colorways for you to look at. The pattern's about $7 on Ravelry, and it's by Melanie Berg, who is Mairlynd on Instagram, Mairlynd. She has hundreds of shawls, I think. That might be an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. A lot of shawls out there. It's just a really interesting construction. I'm going to put a picture up. So it has stripes along the bottom, and then it has these little bubbles that kind of go through it. It's considered triangular shaped. It has a schematic on the pattern. It is a written pattern, seamless, bobble or popcorn, they're calling these. I wouldn't call them really either a bobble or a popcorn, because they sit in between the stitches. After Prince died, many yarn dyers, especially in the Twin Cities area, dyed purple colorways, purple skeins in mini skein sets, purple fingering weight yarn and whatever. And I purchased one of those right away and wanted to knit something out of that. Prince's recording studio is right near my home. the next town I drive to is Chanhassen. And between my home and Chanhassen, you take Highway 5. And right before you get into Chanhassen, it's is his recording studio. So we went through there all the time, and there were all kinds of memorials happening and people painting and doing inspiration photos out in front and stuff like that. That might be one that you don't have in your queue because you've kind of forgotten about it. But if you want something really fun and you've got a set of mini skeins and you can come up with a kind of a tonal or plain solid light color to go with it, super fun. Really neat shawl. And then the sweater of the week. So I wear this sweater all the time. I talked about it briefly on a podcast because I wore it once. I think it was like episode 19, and I wore it on the podcast. It was new, and I was like, okay, I'm going to just say, I'm wearing this. But I don't think I really talked about it at length. I love this sweater. It's so easy to throw on over a long sleeve t-shirt. It's by Muriela, Muriela. It came out May of 2010. It was in my queue for years. This is a free pattern on Ravelry. It was knit with Cascade Yarns Venetia worsted, and there are about 1,000 projects out there. But the gathers around the neckline, there's a lot of stitches there, right? They go down quickly so that you get this kind of gathered. It's really flattering, and then you have everything kind of hanging from the shoulders. I have just really enjoyed wearing it, and I thought, gosh, I know I probably wore this because I wear it fairly often, but I haven't talked about it on the podcast. So it comes in sizes 36 to 46, but I would say that it's fairly generous and would be fairly easy to size up. Not that you want to do that, but you could, because it really is, there's nothing going on except a whole bunch of stitches on the yoke. So you could just get a bigger number for your cast on number. And then it takes 600 to 1,100 yards. There's no sleeves, so you don't go to Sleeve Island, and it doesn't take as much yarn that way. I just think that it's a quicker project. It's just got this little garter stitch band. I just didn't know I was going to like it as much as I do. I really like the drape. I like the way it hangs. It goes with a lot of things in my closet. Like I've got this little dog shirt under it, and it's got hot pink, but it's really a pinky red, and so I can also wear it with something that would have like some red in it. I don't know. I've just worn it so many times, and I thought that's one of those patterns, kind of like the Tappan Z, which is just a short-sleeved, easy-to-knit sweater, little cardigan, much easier to wear than a full-on sweater. Does that make sense? Yeah, I found it really, really nice. You just make the one buttonhole. It has positive ease. It's top down. It's worked flat, so you go back and forth. Easy knitting. It'd be great for knitting in like a group, because knit your way over and purl your way back, all the way down. So if you have a knitting group that you're finally getting to go back to, I'm hoping that our knitting group is going to be able to start meeting outside and visiting in person with one another. But yeah, I just highly recommend that as well. A few things that I have to tell you this week. I didn't realize, but in the pro section of Ravelry, where a designer has her information about how many patterns she sold and where her promotions are, there's a section kind of behind the scenes. And I was clicking trying to find something the other day, and they keep track of who buys your patterns the most. And you get a notification as a knitter if you buy $15, $25, or $50 worth of a single designer's patterns. You would get an email from Ravelry saying, hey, you've purchased, you've spent this much money with this designer. Well, I didn't know I could look at that on my end, and I found that there were several people who had spent a chunk of change on my patterns, and I was just tickled. And so I went out and sent those people a coupon code and said, thank you for supporting me in this way. I know you probably haven't knit all these patterns, but it was just really kind of neat to see that someone spent $25 worth of their money on my pattern. And when you think about it, I can drop $25 at the, I can just spend $25 so easily, or $50, but to do it with one designer is just really special. Like, that just means that they're enjoying something that you've produced a number of times, and whether or not they're paying full price or they got them on sale didn't matter to me. I was just like, I just would call that like the good customer deal, right? Like, they should get a little crown or a little sticker, or, you know, they're the IROC knitters queens or something. So I just wanted you to know that some of you probably got a little email or a note on Ravelry from me. And remember, if you don't look at Ravelry very often, you can set up your notifications in Ravelry on that front page over on the right to email you if you get a message. Because I know that I sent those to people, and there will be some people that won't check their Ravelry for a week or two, right? But they would have gotten the email that they got a message from me, and they'd be able to look at that coupon code kind of right away if you choose to set that up. So that's just a really nice tip. If you have not got your messages on Ravelry shooting to your email, you should probably do that. It's a really nice feature that they offer. And then I am signing up to be an Amazon affiliate, and that is a process, but I can put all my favorite things that I buy out there. So one of the things that I'm going to put out there are these, because my feet would not be working without that, and I get them on Amazon. But I can put my favorite needles on Amazon. I can put my favorite, tools, my accessories, anything that I want, I can put in an Amazon thing, and then they will pay you a tiny little bit if someone goes over and clicks through your link. And so I decided, well, I better do that because YouTube has decided to monetize our channels. Before you could decide if you wanted to have a YouTube ad, and you could turn them off, and you could say, no, I don't want you to pay any money for my YouTube. But once you get to a certain number of followers and a certain number of clicks through and subscribers and things like that, YouTube decides that you should be making some money, and they put the ads on there automatically. And that is what happened to me recently. In the last few episodes, you will have noticed that I have ads on my podcast, and that was not my choice. I did not choose to put those out there. I have mixed feelings about it. I don't need to make a nickel on every podcast or a 2 cents or whatever download. But on the other hand, I have been doing this for a long time, and if they want to pay me a little chunk of change every time, so they put the ads on and I wasn't monetized, and I can't take them off because I've been using their platform, like it's free to me. So I get it, right? Like they want to put some ads out because they have advertisers. And if they can't say to their advertisers, hey, we have it on this many channels. My issue was I didn't really want to have ads on my channel for things that I didn't believe in, right? Like they could run an ad for, well, I'll just use the example of like Weight Watchers, right? The first few ads that I saw on my channel were all for weight loss and diet. And this was a few weeks ago. And I was like, why am I getting the weight loss ads? Why are my followers getting... So I wrote them and I said, is it because I'm fat, or you think my viewers are fat, or I'm an older woman and you think that that's where we're at, right? Like, are we being targeted in that way, or is this at random? And they assured me that they were just random. The ads are placed randomly. I find it hard to believe. That I'm not going to get ads for knitting things as opposed to ads for tools for my garage, right? Like I'm not an influencer for tools for my garage, and so are they really going to put that kind of ad on my page? Like, I just don't know. I can't do anything about it. So I'm going to have to monetize. So if you want to watch my ads so I get a nickel, and I have enough followers that it could probably turn into a little bit of money, which would help, I guess, me pay for some shipping and things that I do. But I just wanted you to know that at first I wasn't aware, and I was trying to fix it and make it go away for the last couple times. And then I did some more research and talked to some more people, and it's there to stay on my channel. Not all channels, but on mine, because I've been there with them for free for all this time. And I will not have control over what kind of ads you see. I also just want to share with you my Mother's Day gift that I got. I went to end of a knit-along gathering at Bee Woolen in Champlin in Minnesota a week ago Sunday in the afternoon because they had a knit-along for my plaid blanket. And I got a note from someone who said it would be great if you could come. It was a customer. And I said, oh, I could do that. So I reached out and I said, when are you doing it? And they said from 11 to 1. And I said, I could be there. And I saw more beautiful plaid blankets. It was awesome. It was super fun. I haven't been out and about in a yarn store. I haven't been teaching. And this was the first time that we were masked and people were distanced at tables where they were knitting. But while I was there, and I have a rule that I can't shop when I'm working, right? Like if I go to a yarn store to work, I can't shop when I'm there because I will spend every penny I make at that yarn store. So I just have this rule that if you're going to go shopping, you can go shop, but you can't shop when you're working. So for the last 4 years, when I go to events and I'm teaching and whatever, I rarely ever buy anything or look around because I'm trying to make, some money at this. But I went into a back room to talk to two ladies, one of their side little smaller classroom spaces, and they had these kits, and I'll hold it up, but I'm going to put a picture. You guys, they're doing the Malabrigo slip stitch blanket as kits, and it is incredible. I mean, I love Malabrigo. I did not buy this kit. I want to be upfront. My daughter and my husband went and got this kit for me yesterday because I came home and talked about it, and I said to Kylie, oh my Lord, they had these Malabrigo kits and they were gorgeous. And it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 skeins of Malabrigo in rainbow colors. And I don't know if they have them in other colors. They might. They also have people who are knitting these up that were there, and they're gorgeous. But I have a rule, right? And I'm not going to spend this kind of money because I was not getting paid to be there on Sunday. So another thing, I'm not going to go up there and spend $150 or $70 or whatever and get this great bag and all this yarn because I can't knit it right now. I would want to cast it on as soon as I got home, and I am booked to do some work. I just got some work that I have to get done for some people, and I'm a little behind, to be perfectly honest. And I'm working. I'm not complaining, but I'm working 7 days a week, right? Like I don't take time off from knitting. I'm either checking emails every day, responding to emails, which I get more than you can imagine, from pattern support, people reaching out. They want me to work with their yarns. I have test knitters right now knitting, and so they have questions, and so I spend a lot of time on the computer, a lot doing social media. So I don't have time to knit this right now, and I am going to cast on because I'm so excited. I mean, I'm just tickled. If you have a little extra money and you want to call Bee Woolen, I'm assuming that they would ship this to you. I don't know if you can get the kits anywhere else, but the room that I was in, they had, I can't even tell you, maybe 50 kits, 20 kits. It felt like a lot, right? The whole floor was covered in the corner with these lovely kits, and I had to walk away. And when my daughter went to pick it up yesterday, they said, I think your mom looked at these last week, and she's like, yeah, and she mentioned it. And I called Dad and said, Dad, you know what we can get Mom for Mother's Day? And so I just wanted to share it because I have never seen 10 colorways of Malabrigo before ever at a shop, right? Like, not like this. Shops get what they get. Malabrigo can be finicky about how many colorways you're getting, and you can order as much as you want, and it's it's coming from South America. It's hard to get here, all those things. And so I just thought there might be some of you who would be like, I have to have that, right? And I should share it. I usually don't share stuff on the podcast like this because I don't want people to feel bad that they can't afford to get something, right? Or that they can't buy the new hot next thing. I don't know that is this, but it is it just speaks to me. I couldn't believe it when Kylie handed it to me yesterday. She drove all the way up to Champlin from St. Paul, which she's never been to the yarn store before, and got it, and I was just tickled. So I thought, okay, I am going to share it this time. Let's do Corey's stories this week. I'm going to tell someone else's story, okay? I got a letter from someone named Susan, and I think it's okay that I share this. This was after the last podcast when I talked about my I Will Sit With You shawl. And thank you so much to so many of you who bought that shawl and are knitting it. I have a couple people knitting it as a prayer shawl for people. And it is 2 skeins of DK weight. The Toad Hollow ladies dyed the yarn. I use the Alice colorway, but they have lots of DK weight that you could knit it in, and any DK weight will work. I've had some people reach out about whether or not a variegated would work with it. I say go for it. It doesn't bother me if lace is obscured by color, because color for me is more important. But it will obscure the little lace bits a little bit. But, I told you the story about sitting at tables and then breaking up into smaller tables and being inviting to other people. And a couple of you did reach out to say and said to me, I am that person that waits for someone to invite me to sit down at their table, because I can't walk up and say, may I join you? I wait for someone to reach out. And I thought, that's exactly what we need to be doing, is saying, hey, I'll sit with you. Are you here alone? Kind of a thing. So this is what she wrote me. On Sunday, I found out a very dear friend of mine who lives in a different state has been diagnosed with a very rare breast cancer. She's young, with 2 children, and very motivated to get moving, and started right away with treatment. She's at MD Anderson right now, going through the process to enroll in an investigational protocol. Not only am I her friend, I am also an oncology nurse practitioner, so I understand the road she is facing. As a knitter, the first thing I wanted to do was to make her a shawl she could have with her during her chemo treatments, especially since COVID protocol prevents patients from having others with her during that time. I want her to know and to feel loved during the process. I thought I had already chosen my pattern until I woke up this morning and checked my email. And once I saw the name of your new pattern, I knew right away that this was meant to be. But wait, there's more. My name is Susan. And if you'll remember, my daughter at her elementary school sat with the girl at the table whose name was Susan. And I'm not going to give away too much, I think, by sharing this, but she said, tears literally come to my eyes, my heart swells every time I think or tell someone about the story of your pattern and my use for it. I have purchased the pattern and some yarn, and as soon as my bum shoulder will allow, I will send you pics of the finished project. Thank you very much for sharing your gifts and talents with the world, and especially me. Well, of course. I was blubbering last week, and I was getting a lot of really kind messages about the shawl and what it meant, and people just seemed to be really responding to the thoughts of the shawl, and that maybe if you wore it at an event, someone would see it and know that you could sit with them, that kind of thing. But it gets better, weirdly. So I shared what had happened with my mom, because I usually call my mom once or twice a week. And then I shared it with Amber and my friend Stacy, because I thought, I'm going to tell them that I got this great letter, right? And I've had some nice letters from you guys, and I will often share them with my mom and I said, look at what I got today. And Stacy, who is a sample knitter for me and a test knitter, and she's super fast fingers, right? This is Stacy that lives in Tennessee, reached out to me and said, hey, if she can't knit that right now, I'll knit it for her. She doesn't need to pay me, but if she has yarn, I'll knit it. If she has a bad shoulder and that woman needs that shawl right then, I'll knit it, right? And we'll get it to that person that will need it. And I just was like, Stace, like what? And I don't want to share too much about people's personal lives, but Stacy's mom passed away a few years ago. So this was her just reaching out to someone who might be in need. And so then I reached out to Susan and I said, Susan, this is going to sound really strange, but I have this friend, and if she would knit it for you, you know, she would be very honored to knit that for you. If your shoulder, which I don't even know how bad Susan's shoulder is, right? But she's also a nurse that works probably full-time, an oncology nurse. So like, how much time does she have to knit, even though a DK weight shawl can go quickly? So, and I said, here is Stacy's information if you want to get in touch. Well, Susan is from Tennessee and Stacy is from Tennessee, which I didn't know, but when I was looking up on Ravelry to send a message to Susan, I saw it, and I know where Stacy lives. So now I get this letter from Susan back, and I don't realize what's happened. Just when you think it can't get any better, I live in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. How kind is that? I may end up taking her up on it. I'm waiting for my yarn to come and hoping that my shoulder will be rested enough that I can start knitting again. But if I'm not able, God has obviously brought me the right angel to make it happen, and I wish you could see my tears of joy. This entire day has felt like a dream to me, and I can't wait to make this project a reality, however it's going to happen. Right? Like, whoa! How does that happen? I write a shawl pattern called I Will Sit With You, and you could absolutely gift it to a person who's going through cancer treatment. My mom sits with her neighbor once a month. Her neighbor has had cancer for years and years and years, and she has to go and my mom will go and sit with her. But right now, Irene can't have my mom there, right? She has to go by herself, and it's a long day. She spends quite a bit of time there, so that mom would usually bring like a chai, tea or coffee and a cinnamon roll, and they would share it, and then they would do the craft that they provide for the people who are sitting there having their treatments all day or whatever. And I just thought, this is like such a weird thing for me, is that my mom sits with Irene, and Irene was my neighbor when I was a little girl, and then I'm making the shawl for my mom, hopefully, as soon as I get a free moment to get my mom the same shawl, or may give her the blue one and make myself a bright colored one, because my mom loves blue. You guys all know that. So that was kind of my plan, is to either make one for my mom or give her the one that is the prototype. But like, we're just all connected. We're all just so connected, and we've been so disconnected that for Susan to wake up and then see that I have this pattern out, and that she follows me, and that she saw it, and then Stacy, and they live like in the same suburb. Like, yeah, it's just, I thought, oh yeah, that's someone else's story, but it has to be mine this week. I'm just going to share it and hope that you all get the good feelings from it too. Okay, let's finish up with the hellos this week. I had 180 comments or something on last time's podcast. Man, lots of birthday wishes from people. Thank you so much. My Pippin Poncho is going really strong. People are starting to knit, and they're really loving the ease of that stitch pattern, and they're just writing me notes. And so I did have a lot of comments, so that it's a long list today. Courtney of the Stitches Please, formerly of the Stitches Please podcast, Pat House, Lori Friedman, Janet Holler, Linda C., Kathy Evans, Elle Cantor, Heather Wilson, Linda C., Brandy Stoker, Christine Carr, Joanne Goldenberg, Rebecca Knutson, Julie Smith, Emma Butcher, S.E. Wilhite, Pat Kohler, Carrie Waldman, Terry Monk, Robin Gasser, Margarita Deverson, Nikki Leffler, Rachel Weisenstein, Judith Muscroft, Denise Gresh, Janice Donaldson, Tina Carter, Kat Montgomery, Nana Beth, Danielle Brown, Debbie Vandermolen, Jesse's Mom 12, Connie S., Donna Bauman, Patty Coan, Valerie Fisher, Rocky Mountain Penny, Elle LeBlanc, Rochelle in Seattle, Crochet Creations by Christy, Angela Jenkins, Samantha Knott, Susie Fab, Becky Bork, Irene, hi Irene, Luana Hendricks, Charlene Richardson, I Go by Tanya, which throws me every time because she has I go by as one word, and I always think it's supposed to be Igobi. I don't know why. Stephanie Haberman, Melinda Rizzigardi Rousseau, Cheryl Lacemaker, Kathy B., Emily Doyen, Janet Robertson, Dawn, hi Dawn of the Frivolous and Frugal, Kelly Mathern, hi Kelly, Wendy Morris, Carolyn Jans, Patty Skaggs, Donna Think. I think that auto-corrected. Boy, I didn't proofread these this week. Mary B., Lisa Smith, Rebecca Knutson, Georgia, Kathy Green, Karen Tumblin, Jeanette Goyer, Kathy Goodman. Hi, Kathy. Hang in there. Go meet your neighbor. We're almost all vaccinated, and we can go start to get out and meet our neighbors. Akila B., Laura Lynn Key, Candy Harris, Teresa Clopel, Emily Soppersuth, Susan Wright, Connie, Donna Gilligan, Glenda Bathgate, and Lynn Langelis. Thanks all for watching. I love that you come back every week. Please subscribe, hit the like button, give me a thumbs up, set up notifications, tell a friend about the podcast. Still trying to grow my following a little bit and getting a few more people out there. I have a couple new patterns in the pike. I've got a scarf pattern that's going to be super simple and really fun. I'm doing a collaboration with Madeline Tosh and Stephen B. here in the Twin Cities. And I have a new matching pillow coming out with my plaid blankets. Here's a little sneak peek of the front of the pillow. So it's going to be a little plaid pillow in a couple of sizes. So testers are working on that. Testers are working on the scarf. I have a cowl that is going to come off the needles, which is a collaboration with Knit Style with Sharon. So I'm busy. I got lots of work to do. But one last thing, I am going to put out a podcast in the next little while featuring all my favorite books of all time. I think I have it at about 15 favorite books, and we're just going to go through and talk about each one of them. Most of them I will not have talked about before because they are from, the last 40 years. Books that have stuck with me over time, books that are worth kind of going maybe back to and telling people about. And so I'm going to put that up as a separate podcast, I think. I'm hoping to record that yet this evening, and so that I can edit it over the next couple of weeks and get that out to you. But if you see something else come up in your feed, I always try to tell you ahead of time that I had that little tutorial come up last time, something that I had been promising to do for quite a while about fixing necklines. And so I did put that tutorial up last time. I have another tutorial to write for someone. They asked about something I've talked about. I can't even remember what it is right now. But until next time, keep your fork, no green bananas. You'll never regret ripping back. Don't complain with your mouth full. Waddle on. Keep it colorful.